Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. It's afternoon here. Hi, Anna. Can you hear me okay? Get closer to the mic. Screw that side. Can you hear me okay? Can you tell? Hello from the mitten. Hi, Michigan. Good. Glad you can hear me. How's everybody doing? If you have a question, it's best to get it in early, because a lot of times if I get going on one of the questions, I will not see them, and then we save them, and so that you can I can try to answer them at a different time. Rage Mystic, you're tired, or are you saying I look tired? Which I would accept either. I would accept either. My dear, my dear, my dear. Hi, Sagefire. I'm sorry, Rage Mystic. I'm sorry you're tired. Is it really hot where you are? It's so hot here today in Indiana. I mean, it's brutal. Just brutal. Let's see. Yeah, it's really hot there too. Sagefire, I was just listening to a podcast. Hey, Cece, I'm sorry I haven't called you. I've had a crazy week getting ready to officiate a wedding out of state, and so it's ended up my timing is just not good. I'm not as organized as I used to be. If I ever was organized, I don't know. Sometimes I wonder. Thank you. I got this from the TikTok shop. I got, it's one now. Mine isn't as blousy. I think I should have ordered bigger. Yeah, I was listening to a podcast about like LifeWise Academy. Is it LifeWise? I think it is. And what they're doing as far as trying to infiltrate the school systems. And of course, Indiana, always the hold my beer state. Gosh, Indiana's name always comes in the middle of something. And this person who's following what LifeWise is doing. For those of you who don't know, LifeWise is like this Christian curriculum academy. And because we now have a bill that allows pastors, even if they're not qualified counselors, they have no educational experience, they can now fill the role as school counselors in Indiana. Yeah, that's what we're doing here. And we changed the language to say that instead of, they call it religious release, I think. I need to go back and get my talking points around this. So in other words, in the chunk of the school day for a student, you must provide space for a student to be able to have access to religious education if it's available. The way most states allow the school districts to determine that is by putting in some kind of, if their code or their law or their bill, that they may have that. Well, we changed ours to shall. So if you, in other words, so if LifeWise wants to come into your school district, into your school and offer it in Indiana, you have to provide the time for it. It's incredibly disruptive. So there's a lot going on. Hi, Logan. It's very, 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 very disturbing. Yeah, apparently this LifeWise Academy is based in Ohio. Let's see. I think I'm saying it right. Yeah. Hilliard, Ohio is where they're from. Now, I thought that they were somehow associated with Prager University, but I was wrong there. I have not. It's one of those. This is one of those things that people have asked me to research, but this takes time. I mean, to really dig into this and read all the articles and try to find all the moving parts. And so I just had some time in my car today, and I was reading about it. But this is pretty disturbing stuff that goes right. And guess what? It has a tie right to Project 2025. It has a tie right to Project 2025. So there you have it. There you have it. Once again, we keep finding these ways that Project 2025 is tied to not just what they want to do with our way of life, but how they plan to indoctrinate kids. And it's not enough that you just do it through church. They want to do it through the educational system. Yeah, Rage Mystic, I heard about that. I heard that Florida adopted the Prager University curriculum, and Prager is not a university by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, it's just not in any way, shape, or form. Aubrey, honey, what's funny? That's a lot of laughing emojis. A lot of laughing emojis. It is so hot here today, y'all. You're gonna have to give me some questions. Did I see one come up, Lynette? Let me go look. No, you just typed a space in here. I think I've taken care of everything. Oh, Sagefire, absolutely. The Prager videos that you see, you're like, can they be serious? Hi, love to read. Thank you for being here. Can they be serious with this? But they are. They really are. I've only seen a couple of them. I think one time when I was doing some research and I saw them on X, and I thought that was really, really some interesting stuff. Well, what y'all been reading? What have you been watching, listening to, reading? What have you been doing? I just finished a couple of books. I think I had some for you. Bad Faith. Most of you have probably seen the documentary Bad Faith, but it is an easy read. If you got the book, you can have it done in a couple hours. It's really, really easy. And I like the fact that it gives you some more of the history related to the connection of Christian nationalism to white supremacy, going back a little bit even and connecting it to the 20s. And I think that if you want to read Fever in the Heartland, because when you look at what was happening in the 20s, you can see, yeah, Fever in the Heartland was really good. Well, first of all, well done and highly researched. And it really connected a lot of dots for me, because out of the blue, I had picked up a book that was talking about Indiana, of course, because of everything that was happening here with the rise in the 20s of the resurgence of the people in white sheets. So there was a lull after the Civil War, and then you had people in white sheets returning in the 20s, and they literally almost took over our country. If it weren't for one woman, one woman who changed the course of history. So if you don't think, and it's a horrifically sad story, but if you don't think that your voice matters, that your life doesn't matter, you must read that book. You must read that book. Thank you so much for the thank you so much for the gifts. I appreciate that. I was going to talk a minute about, let me see. I'm going to be going live in Rev Karla's Inner Circle at 4 p.m. Eastern today, and that is on Book of the Face. So that just allows me to be able to go a little deeper into some of the questions that I can't hear. A couple of times my lives have gotten a few notifications, as they say, notifications. So I'm trying to be very mindful of the type of language that I'm using. And if you can't tell, I'm a little wobbly about it because I'm not quite sure what we can talk about. We had a really interesting live on Friday, and what I really liked about that was how it almost became like this spiritual care experience. And I really like that. There were people who had a lot of questions related to their spiritual journey, their deconstructing, and yeah, Queen Flea, it does. This doublespeak is getting exhausting. For today especially, because I have done so much research, because I think it's important. It is so important for the deconstructing Christian to understand this history, because it's not just important. Hi, Poetic. How are you, friend? It's not just important for what's happening right now, but it can help you start to unlock some of the things that you have been exposed to, or that you were part of your indoctrination. And I got my hands slapped pretty good. I don't know if you just go check out my view counts on my latest videos and see that when I started talking about certain groups, I kind of lost my steam, because I have to be careful once again, as I always do, it seems like. And I'm not feeling sorry for myself. I'm just tired. Yeah, so especially the vernacular, for many of us, we have to use words like unaliving and schmishmorson and YT for the color of our skin and things like that. And that does get exhausting, because you make a mistake and then all of a sudden your live or your account will get flagged. And so you have to be really careful with that. David is asking, what are my thoughts on salvation? That NP, Nick, that's a really good comment as well. Hang on a second. Thank you. Thank you, Lynette. All right, so my thoughts on salvation are one that has completely changed since when I was a deconstructing. Hi, Liza. It's good to see you. Since I was deconstructing, because as a Southern Baptist, so as a fundamentalist evangelical Christian, which, by the way, the LifeWise Academy, we're going back to that, is using Southern Baptist curriculum. So you're getting that really much, that fundamentalist education exposure to our public students, public school education students. But being this whole salvation about accepting Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, there's only one way to heaven. You must believe in the Trinity. You must believe in the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus. You must believe in his ascension. You must believe in the miracles. So there's like this criteria that you must believe in order to be a good Christian, and then also accepting Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. And most denominations then want you to get baptized. I very much lived that. I lived it for years. And when you're also indoctrinated into the fear-based theology, that is exhausting. There's a mental anguish and exhaustion that comes along with that kind of faith, that you're looking through the lens of everything is doomed. There's also, it also keeps you hyper focused on life after this life. So it minimizes the suffering of others, because in some ways, if you believe in this salvation of your religious heritage, which for me, once again, was fundamentalism, then you also believe in the return of Jesus, the apocalypse, the things that are supposed to happen for the end times as laid out in a literal understanding of Revelation. And when you deconstruct from that and no longer believe in that Revelation is pointing to that, it changes the way you look at salvation. It's almost like the lens comes off. And I'm not saying this for everybody. I'm explaining my experience. Remember, I have said 100 times, and I'll continue to say this, deconstructing is not so much about what you believe. It isn't. It's about who you become. So there are many people who deconstruct from the weaponization of their faith that compels them to believe that because of that weaponization, they have the right to oppress others, the way they show up in the world. That your definition of religious freedom is that you get to overpower the government with your version of Christianity, and the rest of us are forced to live through that. That is probably the most, in my mind, the most important thing that you have to deconstruct from. I can sit beside you as a deconstructed person and not have to discuss what our beliefs are now. They are not, my beliefs and your beliefs do not have to be 100% in line for us to be good humans or to be in order for us to be spiritual. We can have a difference of opinions. So I share this only as my experience as someone who's deconstructed from that theology, not only the fear-based theology, but also looking at releasing the Bible from that literal translation and interpretation of Scripture. I no longer look at it that way. So salvation is going to look a lot different for me. My spirituality is more focused on how I show up in the world. My spirituality is more about my legacy, which is a complete paradigm shift than what my religious indoctrination taught me. That's why pure and simple Christians who hyper-focused on salvation can be some of the biggest jerks in the world because they think they don't care. It doesn't matter how you show up. It doesn't matter. Anybody else who's part of the unsaved, it doesn't matter. They're going to hell anyway. So you can say and do and judge and persecute and lie and deceive because it doesn't matter. Your salvation is already secured and nothing you do here is going to take away from it. That's how they're able to then be as judging and hateful as they are on Saturday and go to church on Sunday and raise their hands in praise and worship. So that's a long answer talking about my thoughts on salvation and where I am with it. I don't think about it anymore. I don't think about it. I think my days now begin with what am I going to do today to be a better version of myself, to continue to work on me, and then how can I leave a legacy of kindness and love? Those are my two spiritual beacons. Those are my beacons of light, where before I just needed to make my church leaders happy and Jesus happy. That's all I was trying to do. So it didn't matter who I trampled on to be able to do that. Someone asks, where is a good place to start your spiritual journey? I want to find my own way, but it's overwhelming. It is overwhelming. It really depends on it also depends on where you're starting. So if you're starting from a place of high control, evangelical, fundamentalist, conservative Christianity, and it has harmed you in some ways, like you have a fear for your soul, you feel you're carrying a lot of guilt, you're confused, you feel like you're 1 minute away from being in hell. If something were to happen to you today, you don't know where your soul would go. if you're dealing with a lot of that fear-based dogma that's kind of suffocating you, I would start with deconstructing with reading. And I have a reading list on my website. Spending time on TikTok is certainly going to help you, because there's so many of us who are sharing our stories who've been in that exact same place. When I first left church, I thought my soul was in peril. I still held on to those beliefs even though I left church. I was willing to be the bad Christian to go figure out what this was, but I did feel like God was mad at me because I was being disobedient, and I had disappointed so many of my church leaders. I carried that indoctrination with me. That's why I also tell people all the time that just deconstructing, thank you, Troy, just leaving church is not enough. Just leaving church is not enough. And I will tell you, and this is going to hurt somebody's feelings who's watching this, because, well, maybe not, because I've had to block so many of you. Hold on. One of the most problematic people that I've met is primarily the YT woman who's left church but has not done the work. I said it. And they're out here being YT saviors, and they don't know it until they're called out on it. And it often shows up in them one too many times giving advice as if it's a solution to everyone else's problem, and then getting called out on it. And that you really will see a side of them that they've taken out, the entitlement and privilege that they took out of that indoctrination rears its ugly head, and everyone's going to go down with it. Everyone's going to go down with it. And they equate correction with them being a bad person, which is also part of the indoctrination. They want you to feel that way. And being able to understand that our indoctrinations, our religious, our familial, our societal, all of it was set on this notion that we were entitled, that we were privileged, that we were set apart as the special ones. And so if you don't start to deconstruct from that and acknowledge the fact that that was part of our experience, when you are corrected, you think you're a bad person. And it goes sideways really, really quickly, like ugly quickly. And I've had to block a lot of people. Yeah, Ellie Mae, we have to use TikTok friendly vernacular here. So YT means the color of my skin. So if you're not familiar with some of that vernacular, if you hang out in these lives long enough, you're going to find them. You're going to find many of us who aren't free to say certain things, and they'll start to make sense. They'll start to make sense, but I can't say them. Someone asked a good question. Do you think there could be life after death? I remain curious. There's the one thing that I gained when I deconstructed was not having to know the answers. Because when you're stuck in this, what I call a static faith, you plant your feet and you're just rigid. Ooh, cat lover, that sounds wonderful. You're just rigid in that faith. It's uncompromising. It's never changing. And even as humanity has evolved and awakened and changed, the faith doesn't. That's why it becomes it's less movable, and it's less serving of humanity. That's why I believe John Shelby Spong wrote the book Why Christianity Must Change or Die, because this doubling down on your beliefs, on this rigid dogma, is not serving anyone, especially the Christian faith, the Christian proper, the evangelical conservative faith. So in that faith, you're told that when we are no longer here, we're going to go to heaven, we'll be with Jesus. You've heard all this language. And then when you deconstruct, you go, well, I don't know what there is. For many of us, we've studied like I'm an end of life doula, which was part of my seminary, something I did alongside my seminary experience and my training. And that was because I wanted to understand some of that experience. I wanted to understand, what about dying could I not see? Could I not hold the space for someone very near to me who it was all about my grief and not their passing? And I wanted to be more present and mindful. But also this commonality of things that seem to happen when the veil is thinning. And I believe there is a thinning of the veil. I don't understand what's on the other side of it. I believe that there are people here who do, that are still here, that have more connection or more awakened to it. I have witnessed it. I've seen it. I've seen people be able to call forth ancestors, talk to them. There's a common theme with children. And a couple of times when I've brought them in, an experience one time with a loved one when I came in and she was talking to something underneath my chair. And I said, who are you talking to? She said, I'm talking to that little girl. I said, what's her name? And she said, well, you ought to know, you brought her in with you. I have no idea what she's talking about, but there is a little child, children. And I think I think that whatever is in the spiritual realm shows up in a safe way for people so that they're not afraid. And that's as close to the answers that I can get. Maybe as time goes on and I'm more attuned to my own sunset years, and I'm holding the space for others who pass, I'll get a glimpse of it. But there's many people here who are part of the hospice experience who can tell you stories that are very clear to that. Like that, for instance, someone saying, well, they're doing fine, they're eating. They said, but so-and-so came and told me I'll leave tomorrow. And sure enough. And I have a dear friend whose mother said this exact same thing. And even the hospice people were like, I don't know why she keeps saying she's going to leave tomorrow. And she did. So again, you all, when it comes to my answers, you're very rarely are you going to get a short answer from me. Because in those short answers lies rigidity, lies dogma. And I want to give you the opportunity to be curious on your own, to explore. I'm not here to be your guru. I'm not here. We often, when we are deconstructing, we often are looking for that that harmed us, or that we despise or hate, because it still is comfortable. That's why people who have been in harmful relationships may repeat that pattern a couple of times until they actually heal, until they fix some of the brokenness. And I'm not saying that there's not horrible things that happen in abusive relationships, and people who abuse are horrible people, but we do have to look at ourselves if there is a pattern that continues to happen. So that happens in spirituality as well. You can easily still be spoon-fed by somebody who's going to do the exact same thing to you. Force feed you with things that's going to make you believe, and then all of a sudden you're subservient to a system that is not going to serve your highest good. And if I don't teach you anything, it's that you are more empowered in your spirituality than what you ever knew. And I think as humanity evolves, we're going to figure it out for ourselves that we've always had it wrong. We don't seek religion to give us answers. We seek religion to find community. and people of like minds. But the way the system has been set up, organized religion in its purest sense, should be the caretakers of us and nurture us. And look at our personal needs and experiences. And if that means that that system is not the best for us, it helps us find what we need. But you know that's not what happens. They try to bring you down into submission and compliance and make you small so that all of a sudden you're seeing the conduit of your spirituality through the church authority up to the divine. And that's why I say if we can figure this out, how much more we are spiritually empowered on our own, and then find like minds. I think it's going to be more fluid. You know, I think you're also going to see, I hope I'm around. I hope it happens soon enough. And I dream about it. I do. So maybe that's what we're supposed to do. I don't know. You're going to see a change in the church structure. And that this is, I swear, if somebody puts this in the comments, because I know there are churches out there that are doing the thing. I know there's churches out there that are doing the thing. But when you look at the church proper, there's no way society is going to tolerate a building that's only open on Sundays. Now, I know there's churches out there doing the thing. There's no way, as society continues to expand, there's no way. I think it's going to look more like a secular gathering that's open 24/7 with a spiritual component. It is going to be more community focused with a spiritual component. And don't you dare put that pastor in jeans with the rock band in charge of that spirituality. Don't you dare. Don't you dare. They'll try to market themselves, but don't you dare. Don't you dare. So that's my dream. I think that's what church needs to evolve into. And I think society will demand it. Look at all the real estate out there. Look at the real estate. And if we know, somebody's about to go, I knew it. She's a socialist. She's so left. She's coming back around on herself. I don't care. I do not care. Cat Lover says, I think the church is changing too. There's one in my hometown that's accepting. I'll let you finish that. Everyone and anyone. Good. I think that, we're indoctrinated to believe that everything about our lives is a pie. And every time that we give, and that's the operative. So whenever we create a system that actually tries to level the playing field because people don't understand redlining or food deserts or anything about our history and how it's created an oppressive system, you think that part of your pie is being taken out. When in reality, there is enough. And a society that takes care of its people with just basic needs of healthcare, shelter, and food, and respect and dignity and community thrives. Everyone thrives. Everyone thrives. Everyone is better. But this part of our indoctrination says that the only way our entitlement feels good is if we have somebody that we can be entitled to, that we can wield our entitlement towards. If it's all the same, that's not going to feel good. That's hard to hear, but that is our indoctrination. I'm a child of the 60s. I know what was said in the church. I'm a Southern Baptist. I know what was said in the church. I know what was said in the gatherings. I know what my school said. I know. I can't even repeat it here. What some of my teachers said, other than my seventh grade science teacher type. I don't know. It's in the book and I forget. Maybe it was my I think it was my science teacher. I was going to hell because I was not baptized as an infant in front of the whole class. That's one of the easy ones. There was so much racist, misogynistic things said over the years. And it was just common knowledge that that's the way it was. That's just the way it was. So when people talk about the simple lives, returning to the simple lives, that's what they want. They want to be able to say and do whatever they want and not be accountable for it. That's the problem. Oh yeah, it was mean. I was horrified. My grandmother took care of it for me. My grandmother took care of it. Someone asks, can you deconstruct and still believe? Okay, so yeah, let's revisit this. Can you deconstruct and still believe? I'm not a non-believer. Some people deconstruct to atheism or to humanism or agnosticism or something like that, but I'm not a non-believer. I'm spiritual but not religious. I don't believe in the patriarchal, anthropomorphized, vengeful, pissed off God anymore. I don't believe. I'm so glad I deconstructed from that. But I believe in some things out there. We came from something. And that's why my book is called Deconstructed, Leaving Church, Finding Faith, because faith is different than belief. Belief is what kind of ties you together and oftentimes becomes conditional, especially for those of us who were raised in high control Christianity. You were forced into a very narrow set of beliefs, and it was rigid. You had to believe that everything about your identity, your community, your acceptance was contingent upon you believing in that dogma. Rigid, irrefutable, non-negotiable. Faith is something that is more intuitive and guides you. Now, oftentimes those words are used interchangeably, but they're not for me. And I think that's also important for the deconstructing person, because we'll also use spirituality and religion interchangeably, and they're not the same thing at all. They're not the same thing at all. We'll talk about belief or dogma or any of that stuff. You should get really clear about what you're talking about. And I'm not saying I have the right answers. I'm saying that after my 14-year deconstructing, this is what's working for me. This is who I am. And this is how my deconstructing experience has come together. So for me, belief is problematic for where I am on the spiritual but not religious path, because belief reminds me of the rigid, dogmatic things that were contingent upon my acceptance into my religious community. And now I'm searching for something that's more that more serves not only my highest good, but helps me then in my role as a teacher. And so, like, when I start my day about what can I do to be a better version of myself, that is very much me being expansive and openness to the wonder and the curious of what's there. And that was the craziest thing, because when you first start deconstructing, and you came from this place where you could just rattle off what you believe and you could pepper verses in there along with it, and you're letting all that go to a place that's structureless and oftentimes definitionless, and you live in a place of curiosity and wonder, it's hard to do. How are you going to be spiritual? How are you going to do it? How are you going to know you're doing it right? Who's going to tell you? Who's going to give you the checkoff? Who are you competing with to be Christian of the month? Come on, we want that pat on the head that the pastors kind of gave us, that proverbial pat. It may not have been physical, but you know what I'm talking about. We all were guilty of it because it gave you that sense of purpose and connectivity with your community. And there's no one out here doing that for you. No one. It's just you. And oftentimes when you start to migrate that way, you'll also, don't be surprised if rage arrives. Don't be surprised if anger arrives. Because oftentimes then so many people feel it because you realize I've been duped. You tell me that this is what I could have had. This is who I could have been. I didn't need to hold on to this arrogance and this entitlement. The things I've said to people in the name of that God, the things I've done in the name of that God, the times I sat in church and listened to the things that they said about my neighbor over a God that now I don't want to believe in anymore. Yes, Krista, connection is the key to everything. Once you see the connection in everything, it's simple. That's right. That's right. That's right. I haven't even noticed to see. We'll just take a chance here. Hi, she's a lady. Can you hear me?
Hi, yeah.
Are you deconstructing?
Pretty much, yeah, because I was sort of in parochial school and etc. And I went on a vacation and we went across the United States and I got very interested in Native American ideology. And then I realized...
Krista, go ahead and mute your mic for right now, please.
Then I realized...
Can you hear me?
Can hear you, yeah.
I'm not echoing or anything? Okay,
No.
great.
Just mute for a minute, and I'm going to let She's a Lady finish.
Okay, perfect.
Well, I sort of thought about, you always have like this family natural path. It's like, oh, you're going to get baptized, you're going to get your first communion, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. But I would ask the questions in Catholic school, and all the answer was ever is you have to have faith. Well, faith without intelligent thought is, you're not answering my questions, and I'm starting to believe that this is all Disneyland. And
how old were you when you were having those experiences?
17.
Okay, so it's amazing. I also talk about that in the book where I talk about we have these spiritual breadcrumbs where we can look back. We think we're deconstructing and there seems to be like one defining moment, but in reality, we have many micro times where we came face to face with something that really it was a hypocrisy. It wasn't true. It was harmful, but we decided, or we didn't have a choice. Like oftentimes at that age, you don't have a choice. You're very much still tied to your family structure that is very much helping define your religious indoctrination. But those places really kind of help point you to the to the ways you're deconstructing.
Well, you know what? I'm glad my mother was open-minded because I think she saw that my brother had been indoctrinated. And with me, she was like, I wanted you to have the freedom to choose.
Mm.
And yeah, it
Now, when you say she said that you wanted, she wanted you to have the freedom to choose, but she was a Catholic.
yeah.
Okay.
See, her mother, my grandma was very religious, but my grandfather wasn't. He
Mm.
says God can be in my house just as well as in that church.
Ooh, so there was a mystical leaning in your
Yeah.
experience, which is wonderful. I'm so happy to hear
Well,
that. She's a lady. I want to grab this comment before it goes away.
sure.
Cat Lover said, "I'm so glad this chat is accepting and kind. To be honest, it's a breath of fresh air." Thank you so much. First of all, there are many of my mutuals who have those political debates, and I'm all for it. I'm absolutely all for it, and basically, I could hold my own in those debates as well if I wanted to bring my sass out. But what tends to happen in my lives is that the people need that space for sacred space. And so send some hearts to the mods right now because it is one and out. You come in this space and you make a comment, you say anything that's sideways. If they had a picture of you and you looked at them the wrong way, you're gone. Now we can't promise that we're not gonna miss somebody, but they are amazing. The mods are absolutely amazing. They're non-compromising, and every once in a while they might get a little aggressive. But I'd rather them err on the side of blocking people to try to protect what's happening here. Just like on Friday, I mean, I ended up in spiritual care sessions with people, and we went deep into some conversations. And I want people to know that we try to create that safe space. So thank you so much for Catley. Yeah, you did. One person said something nasty with caps and they were gone. And that's okay, Stacy. I love you for it. But anyway, they do an amazing job. And I just wanted to say thank you because a lot of times I don't see the comments and I'll just all of a sudden, yes, Evan, they will absolutely block and mute just like that in a heartbeat. We don't mess up. We don't mess with anybody. We want to keep people focused on what's happening here. And so y'all just let the mods do their work too. If you see anything go by, unless they didn't see it and you want to draw their attention to something, please do so. Okay, she's a lady. Do you mind if I let Krista come in and say something? Because I am going to have to wrap this live up because I've got to get ready for the other one at 4 p.m.
No,
Okay.
go ahead.
All right, Krista, hello there. Are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Are you deconstructing?
I started my deconstructing at 42, and now I am. I'll be 48 in September.
Okay.
So I've been on the road for a while. I started out as an apostolic Pentecostal. I don't know if you know anything about Pentecostal. Born and raised, and I still love that idea of faith. Okay, that's how I'm going to put it. And I do love what my mother taught me. She taught me to have a very, very, very strong faith in myself, a very strong faith in God, in the universe. I'm very grateful for that teaching, but I am not grateful for all of the religious trauma that I did suffer in that religion because, now at 47, like I said, I started my deconstruction at 42, and I was married for 20 years, and my husband and I both, he's my ex-husband now, but we both came out of the closet, okay? And we both love each other very, very much. He is my very best friend. We co-parent excellently. But I was forced to deconstruct because I was on the road to destruction. I had
Krista, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Can you mute for a second?
Yes.
There is someone in the chat that Shan. Hi, beautiful soul. I'm so glad you're here. I love you, dear one. They are asking that you follow them, and I highly encourage you to do that. I'm not going to get into that conversation. It was part of what happened on Friday, but please make sure you see her comment. So
At
that
Shan.
Okay. So to make sure that you two get to connect. Hi, dear soul. So glad you're here.
Yes.
So first of all, just so you know, my last church was Apostolic Pentecostal.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I knew we had a kinship. I've followed you for a long time.
I went from Southern Baptist to progressive to elder in the Presbyterian, and I knew what I was sensing. I thought if I'm going out, I'm going in first. I dove in, and I went apostolic before I finally deconstructed. So was this at a modern type church?
Well, no.
Okay.
No,
okay. So you were very much on the conservative side then.
Yes, I did not wear pants until I was in my 20s. Okay. And no makeup, couldn't cut my hair, all of that. They call it standards. I call it control.
Yeah. Especially for women.
Yes,
so,
very much.
Given that you're 6 years now into this, and someone a while ago was asking about, like, how do you start this? It's so overwhelming. What would your suggestion be for someone who's just starting the deconstructing journey?
First of all, I just poured my heart out to God because I do believe in a creator. I have felt his love and his spirit so many times in my life. He has picked me up and saved my life so many times. I was on the road to destruction in addiction for 14 years of hard use. Okay, very bad use. But I just opened up my heart up to God, and I said, God, I need you to lead me and to guide me. Spirit, my guides, because I opened up my mind and my heart up to other things too. I believe in Yeshua. I believe in Yeshua with my whole heart, but I also believe in Buddha and in Yogananda and in some of the other great teachers and great people who came here and showed us a beautiful example of what it is to be a neighbor and to love your neighbor as yourself.
So that's beautiful. And what was one of the things I was going to say to you was because oftentimes many people who come from the Apostolic Pentecostal, where you have this immersion in the gifts of the Spirit and slain in the Spirit kind of experiences, and I will never say they did not have them. I will absolutely not say that.
I will never deny that.
And never. I think that there might have been some theatrics that were involved, but I know what I experienced.
Exactly.
I know what I experienced, and that was real.
It is real, honey. It is real.
So that's the reason why I won't give up. And I remain
That's
curious.
right.
And when you said that, I was going to invite you to make sure that you lean towards mysticism, because mysticism can invite you into those places where you can find the experiential, which is often part of the Apostolic Pentecostal experience.
Right.
But it sounds like you have found that on your own.
You know what? That was so important to me, to keep that spiritual aspect alive. Okay. And I will never deny that. Never. Like I said, I know who I personally look up to as God, but I don't expect you to do the same. We don't all walk the same walk. We haven't all signed the same soul contracts, okay? So we don't all walk that same walk. And, I just wish that everyone, because I love my brothers and sisters in the apostolic faith, I love them, but there is so much hate and so much bitterness against other people. That is not of God, my friend. That is not of God. That is not of spirit.
Were you excommunicated?
There are some who will not speak to me anymore. But I honestly, for the most part, they just look down on me with pity, sweetie.
Okay.
It's not so much a blacklist. It's more of a, oh, you are just on the road to hell, my friend. You are just on the road to hell. And you know what? Jesus said that anywhere that I will walk, he will walk with me. So if it is hell that I must go, I know he will walk with me there.
Krista, there is a book, and then I want to give She's a Lady time to finish or to come back to her as well.
Yes.
There is a book called Resurrecting Jesus by Adya Shanti, and Adya Shanti. The mods will put it in the comments, so when you come off the guest panel, you can see it. But this book takes the writings of Jesus and parallels it to the teachings of the Buddha.
Yes.
And Adya Shanti was raised conservative Christian and then converted to Buddhism and became Buddhist. So that would be a good book for you, I think. Another one that I think that you would like is Thich Nhat Hanh's. I think it's Living Buddha, Living Christ, or Living Christ.
Yes, I've read that book. Okay. I read that book in rehab. Okay. I love that writer. Beautiful, beautiful.
I'm gonna encourage you to revisit that. For some reason, there's a little nudge here that says that you are going to. There's something there for you, and there was an excitement when you talked about Yeshua. I don't know if you mentioned the Brahman, but anyway, you went down that way into understanding the universal divine, the universal Christ.
Absolutely.
So I would encourage you to spend some time there. I'm going to invite you to mute for a second so I can give She's a Lady a moment to finish her thought, because I'm trying to give equal time. So if you wouldn't mind to mute, I'll let She's a Lady come back up.
Okay, I don't know how to bookmark what they're showing me here so that I remember. Is there any way to do that?
You'll just have to, when you get off the panel, scroll back down through the comments.
Okay. Can you name that second book as well? Yes. Again, the one I read in rehab.
Living Buddha, Living Christ.
Okay.
And what I do is if I will scroll back through comments and I'll screenshot them. So that way you can get them. That might be a good thing for you to do.
Beautiful idea.
Oh, thank you. All right. She's a Lady. Hello.
Hi.
Okay, so you were getting ready to make a comment, and hold on. I'm going to turn off Krista's mic for a second. You were getting ready to make a comment, and I think I saw a comment that I wanted to respond to, and then I wanted to make sure that I got Krista up here. Mimi Beach says, "Hello, Mimi Beach. I love your content. I have that book by Thich Nhat Hanh. I came across his writings while I was still a born again. Yeah, isn't it interesting to come across those writings when you're born again? I mean, that can really, you can start to feel like, wait a minute, this isn't computing. You can start to feel the bolts coming out when you start to read something like that." But She's a Lady, I wanted to give you an opportunity to finish what you were saying.
Do
you remember?
Yeah. And it's a sign of age.
It's okay. It's okay. You're talking to someone who's turning 63 soon.
Oh, well, I'm there. I did agree with Krista that I dabbled in a few little religions. One of them was a neighbor of mine going to the Baptist. But when I sat in their church, I was amazed that, and I'm not a Catholic practicing, but they started just diminishing other religions like theirs was the only one that was correct.
Oh my gosh.
My God.
You're telling my childhood now. Let me tell you that I sat through an 8-week Bible study that was standing room only. So if you didn't get, if you got there late, you weren't going to have a chair. That was about why all other religions are going to hell.
Oh.
8 weeks, 8 weeks of talking about not only other religions, but other denominations. And that's such an important conversation right now with what's going on in our country, because when people talk about Christianity, some people are being very complacent about what's happening with Christian nationalism, because you think, well, is it bad that Christianity might be the conduit through which our governance happens, our schools are taught? Yeah, it is, because you're sitting over there in your progressive church, or you're remembering Christianity from your one experience as a childhood, and you don't go to church anymore, and you have no idea how radicalized this side of Christianity is, and how judgmental and how close-minded they are, and how rigid they are in their doctrine, and how homophobic, transphobic, sexist, racist they are, because that was absolutely what we did. We talked about why other denominations were going to hell. And so, that very much sets you up with the mindset that you're the chosen ones. You walk through life with that arrogance. And it came face to face for me, she's a lady, when I invited not too long, well, it's been a while because I've deconstructed, but I was in the city I'm in now, and I invited a friend to church, and she goes, "Oh, honey, I love you, but I will never come to your exclusive Christian club." And she smiled at me, but there was anger behind that smile. And I also knew never to cross that line again. And it really shook me that was the way people saw us. And that was about the time that I was hearing things like at the Joyce Meyer conference. Oh, yeah, I was a huge Joyce Meyer fan.
Oh, I used to watch her, yes.
Oh, all the time. And I would go to her conferences where they would have to tell us to tip, that they would have problems finding cities that wanted to host her conferences because the businesses didn't want the Christians there. How awful was
Whoa,
that?
okay.
Yes. Yes.
Well, like you were talking about, I started to get upset, and it wasn't, okay, I don't have sides to pick. I just didn't like when a man in the church, which, basically women couldn't stand up and voice nothing. So this man, he was a male man, and he was saying, okay, those idol worshiping, Catholics that drink the hooch in their church. And I'm like, how, there was so much wrong with those statements that he made that I'm like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
We are not worshiping statues. We are reminded of who those people are, but you never walked into the church. And then he started moralizing.
Yeah, like, for sure.
Those Catholics are bad people. They're sinners.
For sure.
All the priests are raping children, and I'm like, wait.
What? That's one word we can't say. We have to put it.
Yeah.
Thank you. We have to put a G in front of it. Someone mentioned, and I just want to grab this. Jay Girl said Joyce Meyer helped save my life, and someone else said
it's a step.
Chineko, hi Chineko, hi dear one. Joyce Meyer was such a vibe for me as a teenager. Yeah, as a younger version of myself, I just thought I was it, being such a Joyce Meyer fan. But how many of you, and Chineko, how many of you saw the switch flip with Joyce Meyer when she started bringing her husband up, and he started talking about how we were losing our country. Mm-hmm. How they constantly showed, like, members of the LGBTQI plus community in pride parades, and how that was we were going into moral failure in our country, and you're like, what's going on here? And so you're seeing the indoctrination from a different place. So even though you're dutifully listening and you've got your Joyce Meyer Bible and you've got your Joyce Meyer notebook, all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute. This is
Yeah.
the side of Christianity that is part of the problem. So she, so it's like you don't even realize. That's why I keep telling people, oh, well, no, our church would never. If your church isn't speaking out against Christian nationalism, it's part of the problem. It flat out is part of the problem.
Yeah.
That's exactly what the problem is. And she was, but that's also the first time I was exposed to Hillsong was at a Joyce Meyer conference. That was the first time I had ever heard their music. So it was Hillsong United. I had never heard their music. And so then I was hooked. And then I started to see the pattern of how many people were following the Hillsong model. That was a mega church model that was so successful that they brought over to the US. And then everybody started to model it. It's still successful. You can pretty much go into a Hillsong church and know exactly the order of service because that's what they're using is that model.
And what was strange in her church was they became political and started, I would say worshiping Trump. And they're downing Catholics for being idol worshipers and immoral and all, but they're looking at Trump as a hero. You're like, where is your brain? Where is your capacity for logical thought? Because you can't worship a man that is so immoral and hate a Catholic church.
555 Opus Dei. Yes, I've done all kinds of videos. I'm taking a little bit. Hi, Lorna. I'm glad you're here. I'm taking a little bit of a break talking about it because my account is because someone in the ethos of this app decided that they didn't want to hear me talk about it anymore. And last week I got a warning on my live as well. So I'm going to have to take it easy here. Probably what I'm going to end up doing is making videos someplace else and clipping them here. So hint, hint, I will be making the videos someplace else and just clipping them for here so that I can continue to talk about this in a different way. But what you were talking about regarding Trump, I think that's a really good conversation that we need to have because thank you, Pendit. You nailed it. That's where I'm taking it. That's where I'm taking the conversation because I like that kind of format anyway, kind of like a podcast format. And then I can just clip it and then people will know where they can find the rest of the video. But we have been indoctrinated to follow blindly the flawed YT Christian man, even though we especially those of us who are deconstructed can look at that and see that he's vile and that he's not a Christian. When you are inside the faith, just look at how many situations here on TikTok where you have seen the pastors get caught and then try to get out ahead of it and spin a story before it actually comes out. And then the flock dutifully come to support and pray because that's God's ordained. So in the indoctrinated Christian's mind, none of that matters. They have their entire life has been the indoctrination that told them that whatever the church leaders are telling me, and in place of them, my government, because in that indoctrination, that is part of it. Religion, government. Religion, God, and country. Just like if you have not watched that documentary or read the book Power Worshippers.
Oh?
Power Worshippers or read documentary. Krista, yes. just give me 1 second. I'll finish this thought. So power worshipers, and the documentary is called God and Country. It's a very important conversation because there you really see how strongly the indoctrination is into that type of Christianity. So they don't care. They see it all, but they don't care because in their mind that they are being loyal to the system, and the system is God ordained, and God will use broken people because they've seen it and witnessed it in their own church experience. So they have been primed their entire lives for this moment to follow Trump. Their entire lives, they have been primed for this moment. That's why we're seeing that. Krista, you can unmute. I can't unmute you. You can unmute yourself, and you can say something.
Okay, just real quickly, I said one thing, but really there's two. One of them was, in my experience, when people talk about following, like you said, God uses broken people. They compare them to like terrible things that David did in the Bible, or just some really bad people that in the Bible that God used anyway. So that's how they end up, getting people to follow that line of thought. And I'm not saying that God can't use broken people. He absolutely can, or the universe can, or whatever you believe in. God, they can use broken people, sure, but there is a line. There is a line. And also the other thing was, your question to me was, what would I say to someone who is just beginning the deconstructing process, right? And I remember in the beginning, and still to this day, when I start feeling fear, because everything is fear-based. All of our teachings, religious teachings and things like that, they're all from a point of fear. Okay, that if we do not do what we are supposed to do, if we are not good children, we will be punished.
Sebastian, mute for just a second. Thank you, sweet soul.
That we will be punished, because we're not doing what we're supposed to do. And I remember early on, Spirit told me to live fearlessly. For God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of peace and of love and of a sound mind. And that is how I moved ahead and navigated through this thing.
That's beautiful.
That really, really, really helped me so much. And I know it was Spirit because I was so afraid. My anxiety was so high, and I was so worried that I was going to disappoint God, because I love Spirit. I love Yeshua. I love those things, okay? And it's almost like I was born with that. It's not that anyone had to tell me that that's what I should do. That's just what I've always felt. And I was so afraid of disappointing that I was so scared.
I'm sorry, Krista. Sebastian, you did have an echo, and I am getting ready to close out. So try one more time.
I love all you beautiful people. Thank you so much. This has been wonderful.
Krista, come back and see us sometime. She's a lady.
Thank
you so much. Sebastian, unmute and okay, he dropped. If he does, Sebastian, I'm sorry. I don't know if I'm looking at your pronouns right now. I want to make sure I get that right. I can't see them. I am getting ready to close out, everyone. But this has been a wonderful conversation. Oh my goodness. Like I said, I love where this goes. If you ever have questions outside of this, live that you want to make sure that that we see, make sure you email, or Lynette, I'm not sure what the email is. Sebastian, hang on just a second. I'm going to let Sebastian say the last thing, and then we're going to start to wrap this up. Hello, my dear friend. You may
Hello.
unmute.
Yeah, I was just uploading a video. That's probably why there was an echo. But yeah. Oh, by the way, pronouns are he, him. Thank you for considering that.
Okay. Thank you.
And
I'll if I forget, I'll still check. Want to make
Yes.
sure I get it right.
And you actually, you kind of remind me of my grandmother that I actually share a birthday with, and it's just, you give off that energy off of you, and it's so comforting.
Good. That's what I think this, I think that's what these lives end up being. As much as I, can hold my own in some of those debates, I want this to be a safe space. I think that's what this has turned out to be. No, Soft Mom, it's fine. Hi, beautiful soul. How are you? It's good to see you here. But Sebastian, I do need to hop off for today.
Yeah, of course,
I'll be back tomorrow. I am going to go live in an hour in the Rev Karla's Inner Circle, which is over at Book of the Face. So if any of you haven't joined that, feel free. Okay, cool. So you can find me there. Also, tomorrow I'm going to do a Sacred Conversations. This is where I teach live on Zoom. And I'm going to be talking about, basically it's going to be living beyond Paul's words, because for so many of us, Paul's words were weaponized. That was part of that Pauline theology, because a lot of the churches rely more heavily on Paul than they do the teachings of Jesus. So we're going to talk about that. Also, don't forget that my book is in pre-order. Please help out if you can and pre-order Leaving Church, Finding Faith.
I will get it.
I can't believe it. In 2 months, it's going to launch. It's here, but I very much appreciate it. I did start, my audiobook is almost done with this, so I'm excited about that as well. We'll be teasing some of the audiobook and doing some videos. All right. I want to say to all of you, you are loved. You are seen and unconditionally loved. I want you to know that this is a safe space. I love what these have become for us. Yes, Krista, Sebastian is wonderful. Sebastian is just a sweet, sweet soul. And I'm so glad when Sebastian gets to join us for a few minutes. But I need to go take care of my dog and take care of other things. Thank you so much for your time. She's a lady, and Krista and Sebastian and everybody else who joined us here. Thank you. I know there's a delay, so start telling me bye. Hey, sis. Hi, Mary Beth. Talk to you all soon. Hi, sweet soul.